I don't have a problem giving staff a directive to, vigorously search for grant money. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard in your presentation is you guys have done a preliminary search, and what you found was there's really not grant funding out there except for pools, places that don't already have pools. And so that's not saying there couldn't be something out there and that we should stop looking. We should keep looking. We should keep looking for private funding. I don't have a problem giving staff a directive to do that. And we should be looking to maximize what we can get out of our own coffers in the city, whether it's the Capital Improvement Fund or other funding sources. Let's give that directive. But again, that alone is not going to pay for this pool. So unless you get buy-in from the voters, this pool is not going to happen. And so our decision tonight is really, in my opinion, whether we go for the June ballot or whether we kick it and wait and go to November. But I agree with the city clerk. I don't think we're going to have any more information then than we have now.
Well, I do think, though, that what we may have are the options that several of us have already talked about, as far as instead of taking this one design that's being referred to as the preferred design, to be able to look at that and see if there are components of that design that perhaps we don't have to build at this point, that can be done later. So there are some things that need to be discussed that have not yet been discussed, that I know Councilman Harhay and I think Councilman Schuman have both mentioned. Maybe there are components of this that need to be looked at.
If that's council's decision, then that's what we'll do. So so that's what I would request is get us the cafeteria breakdown. We'll give staff a directive to look for other funding sources. I don't know what else we can decide on this particular item, though, at this time, unless anybody has further directive.
Is it possible to go ahead and vote on putting it on the June ballot and in the meantime discuss all these other things that people are interested in? Because it sounded to me like that the number has to be 40 million. Will that change? Or could it change?
Only if you go with a reduced plan.
Yeah, that number could change depending on, once you start the design phase, what things actually end up in the project and what things do not end up in the project. What I think Councilmember McManus was alluding to is that perhaps up front that the council could decide that there are certain items that currently are in the preferred option that maybe the council would prefer not to see it, and then that would potentially bring down the cost. Going to Councilmember Harhay's term of cafeteria plan, that maybe some of the cafeteria items the council decides not to include. But again, now we're having another deliberation that would then take us beyond the June ballot, and we would have to then look at November ballot to bring this item forward. You might reduce the cost overall by a few million, maybe as much as 10 million. Don't know. I don't know what the council's druthers would be about, how much you would strip out of what the citizens have already said is their preferred option, the preferred items that they would like to see in this project.
Well, again, my concern is that we don't rush to a possible defeat in June, and that we take some time to get a solid package ready for November. I understand it's 5 more months, but that may be worth saving this from defeat. Oh, excuse me. So we're talking 2020, not 2019. Okay.
For what?
He said it would be additional 5 months, but it's only the municipal election this year. So if you didn't put it on the June 2019 ballot, it would have to wait till the November 2020 ballot. So it's a year and a half, not 5 extra months.
So if we decided to go forward with the ballot question tonight, when's the latest day we could table that? I guess we could table it at any time, but the last meeting in January, if we decided not to go to the debt management committee, is that too late to stop it? You
can stop it. Even I don't know what the obligation is if it went to the debt management committee and they approved it, and then could the city change their mind? But I just wanted to mention, if we put it on the June ballot and it failed, we can still put it on the November 2020 ballot. And based on, I mean, you can put it on more than once. So waiting to put it on in November 2020, you can put it on November 2020 regardless.
Anyway, on this particular item, we're not deciding the
Right.
ballot question, right?
Right.
So that's when we get to the next one. So is there anything else anybody wants to direct or request from staff on this particular item?
So I would like a little more clarification on the location. It's not totally clear to me on the renderings, and that is an important factor to me. So I don't know if we need to make that a directive. I can just ask those questions.
Yeah.
You have that stuff, so, okay. So that doesn't need to be included in a directive, but I will be investigating that. Okay.
Okay, so do you need a vote on that, or you got what you need? Okay. Thank you. All right, so we are on to 14, consideration of bill number 1842 regarding fireworks code. Chief Nicholson.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. For the record, my name is Kevin Nicholson, city's fire chief. Currently, local fire officials regulate legal fireworks. These are the fireworks that are marked safe and sane on the package and are sold in all the booths that you see around the 4th of July. Those are the only legal fireworks that are allowed in Clark County. All other fireworks are considered illegal. To be more specific, they're the ones that go up in the air and explode or, spin around. All those are specifically illegal in Clark County and the state of Nevada. Before you tonight for consideration is bill number 1842, an ordinance revising Title 7, Chapter 1 of the Municipal Code dealing with fireworks. To be specific, what we're approaching is providing our law enforcement officials the ability to enforce. It defines unlawful acts and confiscation and the penalties associated with illegal fireworks. So that's what we're considering, revising that and allowing them the authority to enforce those laws. And I would respectfully request that council approve bill number 1842 and be happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions or comments, council?
Just one quick question, Chief. What sort of increase in call volume do you see on July 3rd, 4th, 5th versus, August 4th?
Significant. For the most part, that is when, at least here in Boulder City, we see the use of illegal fireworks is right around the 4th of July. We have those calls, and I'm sure my counterpart here can confirm that. We do get a lot of calls. This past year, there was a concerted effort at the county because a lot of the municipalities were receiving those complaints. They're saying that it's becoming bothersome, animals, complaints. There's a lot of issues associated with the legal fireworks, and so we as a county have come together in an effort to try to get this under control a little bit better right now. But here locally, yes, the use of illegal fireworks happens usually right around that 4th of July time mostly.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'll just chime in that I went to a meeting with Kevin about illegal fireworks, and they talked about in all the municipalities what a problem is. So everybody made a pledge that they were going to crack down and try to do more about it. And believe it or not, this subject came up at an LVCVA meeting, and it's still very problematic in the valley, all over every neighborhood. There's illegal fireworks being shot off. So it's a big problem. Something needs to be done.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Chief, can you explain to me what's the concerted effort in the county to make these changes?
I think it's such a busy night for everybody, especially our law enforcement officials. Some of the things that they're doing are creating what's called task force, which are they're able to utilize some other personnel besides the patrol officers. They're creating task force that have code enforcement officials and some others that can go out in what are defined problem areas. We all know where those problem areas are, and I think those efforts, those are part of those efforts, and I think also the Highway Patrol are trying to keep those illegal fireworks from coming into the county, and I think you're going to see some of those enforcement efforts ramp up even again a little bit more this upcoming 4th of July season. So those are a lot of the things they're doing. To be quite honest, it's a very busy evening for everyone. But I think it's loud and clear that everyone wants us to do a better job of enforcing the fact that people shouldn't be shooting off illegal fireworks. Keep it to the professionals, and I think that's what you're going to see across the county.
And just curious, it's so dry during that time of year. I mean, how many fires do you guys put out that night?
They do occur,
Yeah.
And some of the biggest things is when you're in those residential areas that if something goes up and there's a malfunction that lands on a roof, that is a bad situation. And that's why, especially when you're in town here and you're doing those things, it does create those hazards because it is a very dry part of the year for us as a whole in southern Nevada. And so anytime you do that in an uncontrolled manner in an area like that, it does create those hazards. And those are some of the things that we're trying to prevent, let alone the injury that occurs. We have a lot of injuries due to fireworks every year, even though we do our best to get the word out of making sure that you are doing things in a safe manner and you're using those safe and sane fireworks. We're still very busy for injuries also.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. If there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I move for approval for, I can't find the number for this item.
Bill number 1842. Do I have a
Where is
second?
it?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries
I
unanimously.
was on the wrong one.
Next is item number 15, matters pertaining to the 2019 primary and general municipal elections. Madam City Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, our municipal election is coming up. The general election falls on June 11th, and the council has the opportunity to present any ballot questions on that general election ballot. Tonight would be the first step, so any questions that the council is considering, you can discuss tonight, and the action would be to direct the city attorney to draft a resolution to bring forward. Not until that resolution were approved would the question go forward. So this is just the very first step. As you know, questions that must be presented to the voters are any sale of land over 1 acre, any charter amendment, incurring debt of over $1 million, and any expenditures from the Capital Improvement Fund. So staff is recommending, of course, that the bond for the new aquatic center be, and staff is also asking the council to consider presenting again the ballot question regarding the city's ability to refinance existing city debt. As you know, that failed at the November 2018 election with a 60-40 split. And so it's very important that we present this again and educate our voters about that this is not incurring new debt. This is simply, it's like refinancing your mortgage and getting a better rate. We've lost millions of dollars because we don't have the ability to refinance that raw water line. So especially considering if the voters approve the general obligation bond, we want that on the books. It's a code amendment. It's just language would be inserted into our code that states that the city has the ability to refinance existing debt when the opportunity is right. And so we're asking the council to consider putting that item on again. Keep in mind, the council also has the ability to put on any advisory questions. sees fit, and advisory questions do not legally bind the council to any type of action. And do you want me to go through early voting? We'll do ballot questions yeah, we better wait.
Let's wait. Okay, do we want to take up the swimming pool again at this point? Sounds like, if I'm understanding correctly, if we don't go forward with it at this time, we have to wait till November 2020, correct? Okay.
Well, I can add in if you want, Mayor. Yes. I've pretty much made up my mind that, yeah, I think we need to move forward on the swimming pool and debt. 40 million sounds like the number. I don't think that number fluctuates a whole lot. The second recommendation by staff for the refinancing of debt absolutely needs to be back on there and almost be a sister to this first question. And a third one, which we've danced around a little bit and maybe time to approach, is the OHV issue. I personally would like to see that come before council, come before the voters, and we start dealing with that issue. So I don't know exactly how that gets worded or in what form that takes, but I would like to see the OHV thing maybe as an advisory question.
Okay, thank you. Other input? Mr. Hara?
Yes, I agree with Mr. Schuman regarding the OHV. That would be an advisory question for council. All right. The other thing regarding the failure of the 2 of the 3 ballot questions, one thing I noticed just by a cursory examination of the ballot without even reading the ballot questions, the ballot question that passed was essentially one sentence. The 2 that failed were paragraphs with what I believe to be extraneous information that had nothing to do with the intent of the ballot question. So I would strongly encourage, when we redo these 2 questions, that be made very simple and without any superfluous comments, because that's what I think killed it in both particular cases. In regards to the pool, as a ballot question, it seems to be the consensus is we have to do 40 million or we don't do it at all. Even though I would think that, well, you have a budget of 35 million, you got to do it 35 million. But if we don't want to do the actual question, a ballot question, can it be an advisory so we know where we stand with the community? Because right now we've got 380 people or so phoning in or being phoned and getting their opinion. And we've got a whole bunch of seniors that were, of course, are for the pool. But I don't think we have a broad sampling of the electorate that an advisory question would result in an answer. And that would also give us the opportunity to batten down all these other issues. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think I'm just to throw it out there for consideration.
I don't believe an advisory question would let us go forward. The Debt Management Commission is not going to.
We would need an actual approval from the voters to be able to incur debt. I would like to just answer or just provide a comment for Councilman Harhay about the survey. I know that we get nervous that it's only 300 and I forget the exact number, 375 respondents, but it was done statistically over the whole spectrum of the community using the demographics. It was done by applied analysis that obviously does this, and it does have a margin of error plus or minus 5%, and that's normally one of those where when you do polling you want to know what that margin of error is so that you can have some reliability of the accuracy of that information. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. It's not just a random survey. It was done statistically for that purpose because I wanted to make sure that that information is something that the council could rely on.
Yes, I agree. I agree that it was a scientifically conducted survey, and anybody that's gone through graduate school has taken enough statistics to know, yeah, that's okay. However, we have 15,000 people in this town, and they see 375. That's all they see. they don't go down to see a scientific survey. And so I'm just saying that I'm not disputing the results of it. I'm just saying that a better sampling would be a bigger sampling, at least from a common person's perception of what the issue is.
I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the main thrust of that survey was just to take the pulse of the community on the actual willingness to incur a bond obligation, correct? So again, it's, yeah.
That is correct, because I did not want to bring this question to the council without having some sense of reliability as to where the community would be in terms of supporting and funding a project like this.
So we knew it was just to take the pulse, to see whether we even had a fighting chance to go out to the voters. I think that was the purpose of it. Okay. Further comments on any of these ballot questions that have been raised? Well,
I agree. I think the refinancing city debt is, we definitely need to do that, and we need to be better champions for getting that passed. I am for requesting the bond for the new aquatic center, and I too think an advisory question on the off-road vehicles is something we should consider.
I just wanted to make a comment regarding the question about the debt. That was worded in that way and was that specific. It was written by our bond counsel, and that language was specific, and what they needed, you know, I don't know if it was legally, in order for the code amendment to allow the council to refinance debt. So as far as given one sentence, that would not get us to where we needed to be, because our bond counsel would not accept a one-sentence question. It does not meet their standards to allow us to refinance.
I think because to us it made so much sense to do it. As you just said, we've lost the opportunity to save millions of dollars because we couldn't refinance debt. I think we assumed it would pass. What I'm saying is, we as council, people who understand this, we need to get out and educate the public so they understand what this means.
I agree that there was no real understanding of what that bond issue was, or the ballot question was. It was misunderstood by many, and I think the one sentence that actually killed it, when it said the excess funds could be used by city council, whichever way it was, there was something to that effect in it. And that, I believe, was the thing that doomed the issue. But we could put that paragraph to the bond folks the way they want it, and I think you just have another sentence that says, in other words.
Exactly.
You know, it's just like refinancing our house. And I think that would get the point across.
I think the point's a valid one. I mean, the simpler the better. Whether bond counsel can come up with something simpler, I think it's worth at least going back to them and figure that out, because voter confusion always is a big issue with these ballot questions. And if they if it's simple and precise and they understand it, there's a much higher chance of it passing.
And we will work with bond counsel to do so.
Two of the major issues that I heard from people about that question was that you guys are trying to do something here other than what it looks like you're trying to do. Of course, nobody could tell what we were trying to do anyway. But if we try and narrow this question to specify the existing debt, and I understand the city clerk brought up earlier that if we put this on the books, should we get approval for the pool and there be that out there? But that was one question that people thought, it was a citizen initiative that was put in place to restrict this council from putting the city into debt for more than $1 million without a vote. So when people saw that, they said, okay, you guys are trying to do something with that, which wasn't the case. We were trying to save a lot of money. So if we can narrow it that way, that may make it more palatable that it's only going to apply to that raw water debt that's sitting out there for another 15 years or however long we're paying for it. That's one possibility for that. And I think the other part, and I certainly understand Councilman Harhay's hesitation about making these longer, but again, sometimes you need to put another sentence on there that says, this will save you money. On another question, I think that Councilman Harhay may have been putting ballot questions 2 and 3 together. I had a question. This was something I had sent to you earlier. It was Resolution 6749. This was in regard to preventing council from transferring funds between different funds or revenue between different funds. There's 4 whereases. I'm not going to read all of them, but the pertinent one is the Boulder City Charter Commission has recommended that the city amend Article 14, Section 136 of the Boulder City Charter to bring said section into compliance with the requirements of NRS 354.613 pertaining to the use of enterprise fund revenues. That was the resolution. The ballot question said the council may provide for the establishment of a separate department to administer the utility function, including the regulation of privately owned and operated utilities and the operation of municipally owned utilities. Such department shall keep separate financial and accounting records for each municipally owned and operated utility, and prior to February 1 of each fiscal year shall prepare for the city manager in accordance with his specifications a comprehensive report of each utility. The responsible departments or officers shall endeavor to make each utility financially self-sustaining unless the council shall by ordinance adopt a different policy. All net profits derived from the municipally owned and operated utilities may be expended in the discretion of the council for general municipal purposes in accordance with Nevada law. I see a disconnect there between what we had tried to do in our resolution and coming up with creating utility departments. That's actually already provided for in our city charter. The council can create new departments if it sees fit to do so. And the ending statement there, I think, was the real kicker about all net profits. Well, our municipal utilities should never have profits. It either is in reserves or it's in capital improvement, but it's a municipally owned utility. It doesn't generate profits. So again, I think it's very important that when we go from a resolution that says you can't transfer revenue between funds to be in accordance with the current state law, and then we come up with, I don't know how many sentences are in there, but it's a lot, that talks about creating departments and spending profits and doing all that. Again, this is the feedback I got from people. It was like, what are you guys doing? What are you talking about? Why are you spending our profits?
Council member, if I could just speak to that. The resolution is different. It's an action item. It's kind of the highlights and bullet points. The question was a charter amendment. So the entire paragraph of the section that was proposed for amendment is the charter. So that paragraph was taken out to just show in context the proposed change being made. So I don't know, we've done it for years and years and years where you take the sentence or the section of the charter. That sounds like one big run-on sentence, so I don't know where you would cut it, so you would still present it to the voters to show this is this section of the charter. But when you amend a section, you usually take that whole section and show the red lines, which is what we did. So I understand what you're saying, and obviously there was confusion because it failed, and it was a very simple amendment that state law provides for anyway. So I didn't bring, it's not staff's recommendation to bring it forward again because we are obligated under state law to do that anyway. We certainly can put it forward again and cut it down if that's the council's desire, but we are mandated by state law how we, we can't use utility fund revenues for anything else, and there's a specific process. You could take out a loan, and that's all outlined in state statute.
Well, and again, the law of the 354 is discussing enterprise funds, and certainly our utility fits within the description of all transfers between enterprise funds, not specific to the utility fund. That's what the state law is. It doesn't refer specifically to a utility fund. It says all enterprise funds. It just turned into a lot of stuff, and people saw departments and creating things and spending profits, and didn't go over well. So again, I believe that's important, not just to be in compliance with state law, but also to put that restriction into the charter to say that we can no longer do that, whether it's from a utility fund or any other enterprise fund. I mean, we need to be in compliance with current state law anyway, but that's been a problem in the city in the past, was doing that, transferring money between funds. So I think that's one that needs to go back on. I would certainly favor putting the question back on to try and refinance the debt. And again, apologies to lawyers, but maybe we need to add a plain sentence in English there to help people understand it. And I just, by way of mentioning, again, I've mentioned before that I serve on the Debt Management Commission that takes care of everything in Clark County. I've seen things get refinanced. There was one, the last meeting we had was a couple of months ago, $34 million was saved on transportation projects by refinancing debt that had been taken out in 2009. By turning that debt around, getting a better rate on it, they were able to take $34 million and put it into new projects. So it's important to have that ability. One other question that I think has not been mentioned yet that I believe needs to be looked into is in the real estate portion of the charter. With regard to clarifying what it means for the sale or disposition of property. In the past, there have been situations, the energy zone had previously been voted by the people for the types of uses that could be done down there, including the lease of the land, which we've been very successful with. But then that was carried over into what the voters had approved to other uses in that energy zone, specifically the drone port down there. And there are other parcels of land, large parcels of land, that have been placed on our land management plan that are outside the energy zone, but the proposal is to either lease or look to sell that land, but there's nothing in there that talks to whether that restriction applies about an acre of land or excess of an acre of land to be leased. And looking at the legal definition of the word disposition, it sounds to me as though we're not allowed to lease land unless it goes to a vote of the people, if it's over an acre. So I don't know if anyone else on council has a question about that, but I know there have been proposals to lease other parcels of land that the citizens have not voted on the use for.
You're talking in the whole El Dorado Valley?
All 200 and however many square miles we have.
So that would include all the solar leases we've already done and those types of things?
No, the energy zone has been voted on by the citizens. I'm talking about parcels like south of the dump, just out further or closer into town from Cascada. There are a number of parcels out there that have been listed with some proposals to lease that land.
Okay.
So whether we need to specify in the charter that that restriction about an acre or more of land includes any use, other use than its present use. As I say, currently it says sale or other disposition, and the legal definition of disposition seems to include leasing the land.
Okay, so far, I think I've got 5 potentials. The OHV, the Aquatic Center, debt refinancing, the enterprise fund restrictions to conform to NRS, and the non-energy zone parcels regarding sale or other disposition. Any others that I've missed or that you want to add to the potential list?
Pool was on that list.
Pool was on the list.
Can you tell me number 4 again?
That was the conforming, it's the one that Kieran talked about for the confusion, conforming the
Oh, right.
enterprise fund
Gotcha.
restrictions to NRS.
Okay. You just confused me more.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I agree, that was a hugely confusing question. I got more questions on that from people than any of the others.
Me too.
Any additional?
Earlier in my presentation, I mentioned that we could possibly cut back the $40 million by using capital improvement, voter-restricted capital improvement funds. So that could be a companion ballot question to use up to $5 million.
You're referring to any money coming out of the capital improvement fund also requires voter approval?
Yes.
Good point.
Yeah, it is.
Up to $5 million in the aggregate then, total? As funds become available, type of thing?
You could make it a higher amount, I believe, but you wouldn't want to do much more than $5 million. But again,
You
I
don't
guess,
want to wait to see if the pool question passes first?
well, I think that might help it pass if voters could designate $5 million out of the capital improvement fund to be used toward the pool. So that automatically would reduce it by $5 million. You could maybe make it a little bit higher. I wouldn't recommend much higher, but I guess you can't use more if they don't approve more. So
How much is currently in that fund?
about $9.8 million, I believe.
We're getting about $2 million in.
About $2 million a year.
And we're taking out like $2 million?
We're taking the 1.5 for the utility improvements. I believe 1.5 per year, and
500,000.
yes, 500,000 too.
So 2 million in, 2 million out?
Well,
My math isn't great, but I think that's 0.
but there's a limit on that. It expires. It was a 7-year for the 1.5 million, and I believe there's only a couple years left on that.
Okay, so that could potentially free up more funds if that sunsets. Any others? Okay. All right, let's talk about the debt refinancing first. I'm just going to read these one by one, and then we'll just vote on them. We can talk about specific language if you want to, but I think that's kind of the city attorney's task. So debt refinancing, do we want to put that back on? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Comment on this?
Public comment.
Sure.
This is an action item. Is there a comment on it?
You don't have to open it.
We'll open it up. Go ahead.
Thank you. I apologize for interjecting. It's our practice for public comment on any action item. My name is Neil Sinaikin, and I was really sorry to see that the item on the ballot about refinancing debt that's existing didn't go through. I definitely support it, but in looking at it, I have an understanding of it because I've studied these things. The average person who read what was written couldn't possibly understand it, and it scared them. It does need to be looked at by an attorney, and it should be written in the King's English, and there should be publicity because there's a lot of money at stake. It's a giant waste of money, and the reason it didn't pass was it was poorly written, people didn't understand it, and they voted on fear and mistrust. I suggest to you on the pool, why not do it as an advisory question so you don't
run the risk of scaring people again. You're not going to have time anyway. You can put it on the next ballot, but at least people will understand how much they're going to pay. They'll get a rough idea. You'll have better drawings. To me, that makes more sense of doing the same thing you did on the debt question and putting people in a fearful, uninformed position. Under the open meeting law, you're allowed to answer this question for me. My question is, I couldn't hear, did the topic of putting something about the 1 acre sale of land come up for discussion of putting that possibly as a ballot question? You're allowed to answer that yes or no.
I didn't hear anything on that.
Oh, okay, good. That's fine. So those are my suggestions. I would definitely support and help do whatever I could to get the refinance thing passed, because we're losing an awful lot of money for nothing out of misunderstanding. And I would support an advisory question, because I don't feel you're going to have enough information on the pool to present it properly, and you're talking about a $40+ million expenditure. In commercial real estate development, I've been involved in malls and office buildings, and a $40 million project turns into an $80 million project by the time all the smoke clears away. So those are my thoughts. Thank you for opening this up.
Thank you. Any others on James?
Judy DeShane. My comment has to do with the debt refinance. It almost sounds like we, the citizens, are being blamed for the fact that we didn't pass it now. I would like to remind everybody that in 2016, this was discussed prior to the election, and it never went on the ballot then, and that's when we could have saved the most money. Interest rates are back up to more a normal level. We won't save as much as we could have saved 3 or 4 years ago had the council put it on back then. And I would disagree with Mr. Sanakan on the pool, even though I probably won't vote for it unless I get more information, but I think you should put it on as to whether it's going to go, an actual ballot, whether you can get the bond or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? James?
James Adams. I just wanted to comment on Mr. McManus's suggestion of being a little bit more specific about the language when it comes to selling and or leasing the land. Personally, I think the idea, I know when we were, sorry, my mind's just a little confused. When we had the whole Gateway Center project coming up, I think that was, there was talks, I think, 600 acres or 700 acres or something like that. I mean, huge numbers. And we were talking about a 99-year lease. I mean, that's, going to be for the rest of my life, most likely. To me, that sounds like a loophole. That sounds, when the people have put it on there that if we're going to dispose of our land of an acre or more, we want to have a say in it. And then, okay, well, we don't have to sell it to them. Instead, we're going to lease it to them for 100 years. To me, I just think that it would be a very good idea to put the voice back in the community in that sense, just to make sure that there are no loopholes like that, so that we do have the final say, since it is our land. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll close public comments on these items, and then, all right, so you don't need another vote on the debt refinancing, do you? Okay. OHV, all in favor?
Before we vote on that, could we get some definition other than just say OHV? Does it mean we like OHVs, or we know what the definition of OHV is, or what is it that we're talking about? Are we talking about having these be legal for all streets in Boulder City, for restricted streets in Boulder City, for certain areas? I'm not clear on what is being proposed, and the city clerk would like help with that.
So, based upon the research that staff has performed in this regard, in our discussions with PoolPack, who provides our general liability for the city, it would be important that any question is consistent with current Nevada law with respect to the city's ability to designate certain streets as OHV permissible. And so my recommendation would be that the advisory question specifically cite the statutory construct that's already there. This is NRS 490 that allows cities to designate streets as OHV permissible. Now, these OHVs are large OHVs. Those are defined by statute. That same section defines which ones can lawfully drive on the streets as permitted by the city, and what they are required to have. And so my recommendation would be to follow that so as to not run afoul of PoolPack in our current insurance obligations. So there is some structure and definitions that are provided within that section 490. So the question would basically be something along the lines, should the city, pursuant to Section 490 of the Nevada Revised Statutes, designate city streets as OHV permissible as defined by the statute? And again, these are large OHVs. These are the side-by-sides that many people saw in the Christmas parade. And they have to meet certain requirements within that statute. So
I believe one of the terms they use is street legal, right? They've got headlights, taillights.
Yes, but let me make a subtle correction there. These vehicles cannot be turned into street legal. They're not street legal because the DMV doesn't recognize them as such. But Nevada law does allow us as a municipality to designate our streets as large OHV permissible, and they do. You're correct, Councilmember McManus. They do have to have headlights, a horn, certain muffler requirements, reflectors, things of that nature, and those are all outlined within the statute.
Okay, I appreciate the definition, and I guess then my question to members of council is this just going to be open-ended, that it would allow the city to designate streets? Will it designate certain streets? Is it an advisory question?
It would be an advisory question, and then at that time,
well, it could be a referendum. I mean, we could actually state some type of code and make it a referendum. But
you could adopt an ordinance today, but based on the feedback from the community, from the advisory question, you could go forward with a possible code amendment if the council chose to do so.
Okay.
Or not, depending on, you're not obligated to do either by the results of an advisory question.
So I think I would be willing to do an advisory question. I'm not prepared to do a straight ballot question. And an advisory question would just tell us whether people of Boulder City want these things on the streets or not. Even if they say yes, we would want to tailor some kind of ordinance to address some of the concerns that I have, and I'm sure other citizens would have. I know PoolPack and the insurance issue as to whether our rates would go up, and certainly the liability aspect of that would be important. The noise aspect of it, and other things like that. And so this is a polarizing issue. We had the big group show up that's in favor. We get lots of emails from residents that don't like the fact that that they have people that abuse that near their homes, and we've probably got a small group on both sides of that issue, as well as a big group in the middle that maybe needs to weigh in. It's not so high on their radar, but I think we need to know whether the community as a whole has an appetite for this, and if they do, then we can tailor an ordinance to fit it.
Yes.
And it wouldn't bind us. I mean, it doesn't force us to do it, but at least it tells us what the community wants.
I think it's real important to know, because I don't have a clear idea of what people want. It's interesting that I'll have someone say to me, well, or we'll get a letter, well, I know the city is just going to do this regardless of what we say. They're going to make these OHVs legal. And then you hear somebody else say, oh, the city's not going to do anything. They're not going to ever let us do it. So, I mean, as you say, it's polarizing. It's either end of the spectrum is what I hear. So I think we need to know, as you said, what's in the middle, what other people are thinking. Because the feedback I'm getting is one camp or the other camp.
Okay, so it would be an advisory question similar to that. That would come back to us. We would see it before we actually send it out. But are we in favor of pursuing that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously. Okay. Aquatic Center. So it sounds like in order for it to pass the debt management, we need a hard number. So 40 million is the number we've been talking about. Do you need any more information on that from us if we approve it? Okay. So that's the proposal. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Okay. Let's jump down to the capital improvement fund issue, because that potentially goes along with that. So, expending up to $5 million as funds become available from the capital improvement fund for the purpose of contributing to the cost of the aquatic center. Any discussion on that?
Well, just to clarify, we can do that after the
Yes.
question were to pass.
Yeah.
You
Doesn't
can.
have to coincide with it.
It doesn't, but I believe that our finance director made a very good point. If the citizens can see that this is step one, we already have the money, it's available, and use that towards the pool, I think that does give the bond question a better chance of passing.
Well, again, I think, too, when you go to the Debt Management
Yes.
Commission, you can't say, well, gee, maybe we're going to get $5 million, so you're going to have to say, this is how much we want.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Okay. Next is the enterprise fund restrictions to conform to NRS, similar to what was on the last ballot question. With some kind of stipulation that we try to make it a little clearer. Any discussion on that before we vote on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question? So you want to present that question again, but you want it scaled back? I'm unclear on what we're doing.
Do we have to? Okay, so you said the practice has been to put the actual language in the question itself?
Yes, because it's amending our charter, so we show that portion of the charter with the red lines.
Well, let me ask if it's possible that a new section be entered in rather than... Because, again, there's an awful lot of wording regarding utility funds and profits and things like that that is not what the intent of the law is. I mean, those are included in that, but the law is broader than just the utility funds.
It almost sounds like a question that just says, should the charter be amended to conform with NRS whatever? But you're saying we can't do that and put the actual language down in the, in the pro section? We have to actually have it as part of the question?
It has to at least be in the explanation portion, yes, because I'll tell you why, because because when you look back, I've looked back on every single charter amendment since the 1960s, and you have to have that history, and you have to memorialize what was done to our charter from the time it was adopted to present. So you have to show the red lines and what is being amended.
Well, so if it can be in the explanation section and it's more simple than the actual question, that would be my preference. Otherwise, my inclination is to actually not put it back out again, because it was super confusing, and it didn't even... When I saw the actual question, people started asking me questions about it. I'm like, I don't think we ever approved this to go out to the voters, so what are we talking about here? And then I had to look at all the other questions and say, okay, that's got to be the one where we're trying to conform to NRS. But it just, at the same time, we were creating a utility department anyway, and it just, everybody was confused. I mean, why are we doing this? And
well, can we give directive to have the city attorney look at the charter, determine if there are other ways?
Yeah, that's a better route, because I'm and I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not prepared. I'm not prepared to answer some of those questions, but we can certainly look at the language in that section and maybe come up with a
proposed resolution. Yes.
We're not requesting a ballot question. We're requesting you to look into possibilities.
Yes.
I think that's a better route. Also, if that's the case, just keep in mind, usually on anything that involves the charter, we usually get the advice of the Charter Commission. So I don't know if you want the city attorney to bring that back first and then maybe remand it back to the Charter Commission. I think that would be the logical way to do it.
I believe that's the way it's been done in the past.
And then we'll go from there.
yeah, and I agree with that. My concern is if it's another confusing question. I mean, especially if we're going to have 6 questions, you can only put so much political campaigning behind so many things all at once. And if you just have all these scatterplot things, I'd rather focus on what's more important to us, especially since, as you pointed out, we're already bound by the law. I don't mind conforming the charter to that. I think it's appropriate, but not if it's going to confuse the voters and mess with the other ballot questions we're putting out.
And I agree with that. I think that, though, allowing the city attorney time to look at it, see if there are other options, and then we can decide whether we want to go forward.
Okay. Fair enough. So since we've restated that, I'll call for the vote again. All in favor of Mr. McManus's proposal? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries unanimously. And last is the non-energy zone parcels. And you better restate that. So it says currently sale or other disposition, and you want the question to hone in on whether. Go ahead.
Specifically, it's section 140, disposition of city-owned lands. Number 1, except as otherwise provided in the laws, lands shall be sold, leased, or otherwise disposed of by the city council. And then section 2 is the one that refers to the acre of land. And again, the wording of that is all land shall be sold or otherwise disposed of by ordinance. Which, again, to me, the intent is whether you lease it, you loan it to somebody, whatever you do with that land, if it's more than an acre, it's going to require a vote.
And so, just to clarify, is it just the El Dorado transfer zone land, or it's all of Boulder City?
All city-owned lands. That's the way that paragraph reads. So it's section 141A.
So what are you proposing, a question, a ballot question, or what are you asking for?
Well, I'm proposing it would be a charter amendment to clarify that language that, currently it says all city land shall be sold or otherwise disposed of by ordinance, and any sale or disposition of parcels of more than 1 acre must be approved by registered voters.
I believe this, I'm 99% sure this was an initiative petition that put this language in. So I'm sure that was done by voter initiative.
So what does that mean?
Well, usually it means to change it must be done by voter initiative.
So you're saying if that's true, we couldn't send it out from council. It would have to be by the voters doing that.
Again, can we then say, again, ask for research on this? And
yes.
Mm-hmm. Then my motion would be to request research on how that was passed and what changes could be made to clarify the language.
Any questions or discussion on that?
So it's not really a ballot question that we're about to vote on here. It's just, there's just a directive out.
Research the history of it, and as well as I guess the impacts and how that could be changed to clarify. And your particular concern is leases, right? Is that the big issue?
Well, again, I think what's happened over time is that the assumption was, well, if we're not selling it, we don't have to go to the voters if it's over 1 acre. And I believe the language is clear, but clearly that has not been followed by council. So I think that some clarification needs to be made that that's what that means. If you're going to do anything with more than 1 acre of land, the people have to vote on that use.
You said there's a solar exemption, so was that passed at the same time, or was that different?
I'm not sure. I know that the energy zone, whatever we call it, El Dorado Valley Energy Transfer Zone, that was voted on by the people to allow for the lease of the land for energy production, was one of the uses. Recreation, research.
Okay, so do you need anything? Do you need a vote on that? Okay, so this is a vote to research what's been said. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, I'll vote nay on that as well. So we've got 3 in favor. That passes. So,
it wasn't done at the same time. I'm looking in the charter. So I believe the sale of 1 acre or more is definitely an initiative. And then the other one, I think, was put forth as a question by the council. But I will double check that and get back with you.
Okay, so we have a directive to move forward with that. Okay, I think that's it. Any others? Okay.
One more? No, just
you can make it an even dozen. Okay, Councilwoman Levitt would like a break, so let's take a 5-minute break.
Good idea.
Oh, you didn't set the over and under on this one, did you?
Oh, I figured it was going to be
here.
longer.
I want my dog to start. Okay, we're back from our recess, and I think so. We still have item B that you need to talk about, right?
You ready?
Yes, we're ready. Go ahead.
Item number B pertains to early voting hours and election day vote centers. So we, the Southern Nevada clerks, met with the county last week, and this year for the first time, because of the county's purchase of new voting machines, when they bought the machines, the Southern Nevada clerks had made a request that they be programmed that would allow voters in municipal elections to vote like they do in the county and state elections, which means during a municipal election cycle, voters can vote at any location. It does not have to be here at City Hall. So the gallery is open for 2 weeks. They can go there just like they would a state or county election. So when we met to talk about our schedules, actually the county proposed these dates that were included in your packet for the primary, if necessary, and the general election for early voting. This it's based on history, and it's also based on the least amount of disruption, like for council meetings and that type of thing. So I'm asking the council to approve the early voting schedule, and because at the next council meeting, the council will be approving a declaration of the election, and it has to list the voting hours and locations in that notice. The other issue is the election day vote centers. This is just a routine matter. We eliminated Garrett Junior High School back in 2015. 50% of our voters turn out early, and then the Parks and Rec building is a vote center, and Martha P. King is a vote center. We're just proposing to continue that. Voters can go to either of those places on election day. They are not required to go to a certain polling place based on their precinct. So I'm asking the council to approve the proposed early voting schedule as well as the vote center locations for election day.
Thank you. Mr. McManus?
I believe that the way the election department can now do it also on election day, a person from Boulder City could go to any place in Las Vegas as well. So if they worked in Las Vegas and there was a vote center near them, they don't have to come back to Boulder City to vote.
That is correct.
Were you able to find any information on the daily cost or additional day cost of expanding early voting?
I didn't have time to research that, and I apologize. I have been in meetings for 2 straight days, but I do have that breakdown, and I will follow up with you. I mean, I could tell you, I can give you a general idea, like on the help, but I don't know what the voting machine is. You know, the majority of our costs are printing in the paper.
So if we put some more ballot questions on there?
Yeah, it's going to be a doozy this year, for sure. My budget's probably busted.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion if we're ready to vote.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next is City Council appointments. Item number 16, we have Parks and Rec Commission and Planning Commission. Madam City Clerk.
The Parks and Rec Commission is comprised of 7 members who serve 4-year terms. The terms of Lisa Morris and Carla Morgan expire January 4th. Lisa is not interested in reappointment. Carla Morgan is interested in reappointment. The names of other interested volunteers in the community were in your packet, and I am recommending that the council appoint 2 members to the Parks and Rec Commission for a 4-year term expiring in 2023.
All right, so I will open nominations. And I'll move for a reappointment of Carla Morgan. Or I'll nominate her.
Can I move that nomination cease, or with
need
respect
to,
to Carla?
right?
Well, I thought we wanted to.
Are you
postpone her.
nominating Carla, or are you making a motion to reappoint her?
I can do either. I guess I can make that motion to reappoint her. You want to second
Then
that?
you can second it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So I'll reopen nominations for the replacement of Lisa Morris.
This is for the second member of the rec. I would recommend, I nominate Joshua Fisher
Okay.
for that position.
Any further nominations?
I'll nominate Mike Pontius.
And any further nominations? Okay, so we have Joshua Fisher and Mike Pontius. Okay, we'll vote on Joshua Fisher first. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And all in favor of Mike Pontius?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Pontius approved. So that's that one. And then we have Planning Commission.
The Planning Commission is comprised of 7 members who serve 4-year terms. The terms of Jim Gianosa and Nate Lassoff expire January 1st, 2019. Jim Gianosa is not interested in reappointment. Nate was just recently appointed on September 11th, 2018 to fill an unexpired term, so he is interested in reappointment. Volunteer data sheets were included in your packet, and then, as I mentioned in briefings, we did receive a submission from another community member, Steve Rudd, who is in attendance tonight. So I'm asking for the council to appoint 2 people to the Planning Commission for a 4-year term, please.
Okay, I will open nominations and nominate. Well, I'll just go ahead and move for reappointment of Nate Lassoff.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. And I'll open nominations for replacement of Jim Gianosa's seat.
Mr. Mayor, I'll nominate Steve Rudd.
Okay. Any further nominations then?
Move to close nominations.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. So congratulations to Mr. Rudd and Mr. Lassoff. Thank you for your service. You're welcome to say something if you want to, but the deed's already been done, so I guess I should have asked you in advance.
I just want to say I appreciate the opportunity to help the community. I hope that my years in construction with planning communities. I work for a national construction company right now. I remodel about 450 homes a month throughout the nation. Probably do 120 brand new homes. I'm involved in the permitting process, so I have a broad knowledge across the nation of what other communities are doing, and I hope I can bring that to Boulder City to help our community members improve their property.
Thank you.
I'll just keep it simple so we can go home. I appreciate the reappointment, and I hope to serve Boulder City very well. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Item number 17 is our final public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak in final public comment?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Brock Armentrout.
Councilmember said if you notice, he is not huffing and puffing.
Yeah, I didn't pull a Brock. Earlier this evening, you introduced a bill. It was item number 6 for an agreement for an option for Silver Peak Solar to lease some land in the south end of the dry lake bed. There appeared to be some confusion among some of the speakers that this was land that had already gone to the Planning Commission, was denied or recommended for denial at the November Planning Commission meeting. This is not the same parcel. The parcel that went to the Planning Commission is roughly 600 some odd acres, and it's north of this parcel that extends roughly to the upper third of the dry lake bed. This is a parcel that has been in the land management plan for quite some time. It has previously been leased to another solar developer, and what was considered for introduction was to lease land to a different solar developer, as the original one had no desire to develop on that area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Judy.
Judy DeShane. I just wanted to let you guys know that considering the hour is probably apropos even, I just heard on the radio earlier this week that Alka-Seltzer was introduced in 1931. So Alka-Seltzer is the same age as our city and the dam. Thank you.
Is that going to make the paper this week?
I just like funny things like that.
Yeah, it could be a trivia question. Okay.
James Adams, I'll just make this real quick. I was really, really happy to see Shannon Ryman get that award for Employee of the Year. She is absolutely awesome. The city is really fortunate to have somebody like her. I know I had questions one time I was trying to navigate I think it's called the Laserfiche or something, and she was very helpful with just helping me at least understand how it worked, and she's really awesome. We're very lucky to have her, so thank you.
Thank you. Others? Neil?
Neil Sinaikin. I agree on disposition. Anything like that, I believe, is covered by the charter. When I was speaking earlier, when you were attempting to put item 12 through that I felt would have taken away civil rights, and you luckily pulled it, I said that 7 of you I deemed dishonest, with the exception of Mr. McManus, and I wish to clarify that. I didn't mean it with intent. The good book says, judge lest you be judged. And I'm not judging you. I'm just observing things that I've seen happen because I watch the council very closely. And this is Christmas, and there's a new year, and I'm hoping that you take to heart some of the things I wish to point out just for your benefit. And again, I'm not judging. I'm only trying to point things out for you to consider. On Gateway, where there was that 500-acre commercial project that you withdrew from, there was a $95 million loss that was stated in your report that wasn't released to the public, and it didn't get to the council for 3 days before. I believe the mayor knew that, and other people knew that. It was a fiasco, and it was pooled. I asked Mr. Armentrout to release 4 reports many times, and at this podium, Mr. Armentrout refused to do that. Statements on the city website were contradictory. The Planning Commission wasn't given any of the reports. They nodded based on lack of information. So that, to me, may not be intentional, but it was dishonest the way it was handled. When Steve Morris was appointed, he withheld, or Mrs. Crum withheld his resume, and you were cited with an open meeting law violation by the Attorney General. I have Mrs. Crum's deposition to the Attorney General, and she's made 3 false statements, with or without intent. I don't know, but there's 3 contradictions in it. Mr. Morris didn't go ahead with his contract for months. He made hundreds of thousands of dollars, and Mr. McManus called him on it to go ahead and approve the contract. He benefited from that. Celia blamed the people that filed the open meeting law violation, and that wasn't true. She made a false statement. It was Mr. Morris's election not to accept the contract. When Mr. Noyola was hired, there were 4 investigative reporters and cameramen here from his background in Arvin. He ran down the hall from them. There were 2 investigations in Arvin. I was contacted by the reporters. George Knapp was harassed. George Knapp called me for information on this. I can go on and go around the room. I'm not judging you. I'm pointing out that each of you have said things dishonest, that if you give me an hour on BCTV that you blocked us from using, I'd be glad to produce videotape, audio tape, letters, emails, depositions. Try to look at this. Peggy Levitt, Warren Harhay. I can't get through all of this. I wish you all well. Think about it. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Any others? Glenn.
Good evening again. My name is Glenn Fan. Brock just came up here and made a comment about the lease. The area that I was talking about is exactly the area he was talking about. That has been leased and stuff like that. Now somebody's looking at to lease it. I was referencing back to the item 6. You guys took it away that on a strategic plan that you wanted to go back to preserving the lake. And that's what I was implying, to preserve the lake and not to release that land. Give us the whole lake bed back. That's what I was referring to, and that's why it didn't show up good my finger pointing, but I was pointing at the parcel that Brock was just talking about that is looking for leasing. Because I know the rest of that area, we were at the planning commission meeting and stuff like that, where they did say no to expand it, which would have covered up basically the whole middle of the lake. So just so you know that I was clear on, I was trying to be clear to you what area I was talking about, and it is the area that Brock did mention that has been leased before, but now it's coming for potential lease. But at the same time, on a strategic plan, you just said you wanted to preserve the lake bed. So that's what I was alluding to. Think about releasing that or not releasing. Want the whole lake bed back, or do you want to lease out part of it? Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? All right, we'll close final public comment and we'll move to item 18, City Council reports. Mr. Hardy.
Yes, first off, evidently, besides being in the holiday season, it's also Festivus. So we should have a poll here, so we have an airing of grievances. So I'm going to add mine. I came here and I didn't expect to get a unwanted and unwelcome Christmas present in that I received the unsubstantiated charge of dishonesty. Now, integrity cannot be purchased. A reputation cannot be purchased. It's earned. So I take great umbrage when someone calls me a dishonest person, especially without any factual information to back it up. So I do want to say that, but in reflection of the actual holiday season, I do want to wish all the Boulder City and the constituents a very Merry Christmas, a happy, healthy, and prosperous New Year.
Thank you. Councilwoman Levitt.
Just quickly, Mr. Mayor, I want to thank everyone in the city who was involved in making this such a great holiday season. There's so much work that goes on behind the scenes. We've talked about it before, but I particularly want to give a shout out to Tina Pickens, because I don't think people know she's in the city clerk's office and she always decorates the golf cart that we use in the parade, and she did too this year, and they were fabulous. She had a tree on top of them and lights everywhere. And so anyway, tell her how much we appreciate it. And congratulations to our new appointees on our committees. And I appreciate everyone who applied. And again, happy holidays to everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Schuman.
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, wanted to mention Jim Gianosa, and I was surprised to see that he's retiring from the Planning Commission. He's been there forever. He's been a great guy, a great leader on that Planning Commission, and I really enjoyed working with him over the years. You future planning commissioners have tough shoes to fill with Jim Gianosa, but good luck to you. I'm sure you will. Both worthy of it. And lastly, I'd like to take this time of year to thank the council and thank the council that I work with for a year of consistently showing up to the meetings and being prepared and working diligently next to me. And I wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Mr. McManus.
I would like to talk about the Civilian Military Council meeting attended today. It was Operation Warm Heart, is an effort that Nellis Air Force Base has for the children of service personnel that are deployed overseas during this time of year. And there was one organization that donated $3,000. There was another that donated $10,000, and Clark County also came in with $10,000. So
That's amazing.
It's a great organization. They provide child care. They do all kinds of things for the airmen and women out there. Truly great thing, and gets us into the Christmas spirit. So again, happy holidays and Merry Christmas to everyone.
Thank you. So we do not have another meeting in December, which is good, but we had two meetings tonight virtually, so That's good. I hope everybody has a happy holidays. Enjoy your Christmas season, and looking forward to another great year next year. We had a great one this year. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you for your reflection.
Have you noticed the new streets? You know the ones I'm talking about. The ones with new bike lanes that benefit pedestrians, cyclists, and motorists. In an effort to promote the use of our valley's great transportation options and make our community a great place to live, all of the jurisdictions, in partnership with the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada, are enhancing our roadways with complete streets as part of the Southern Nevada Strong Initiative. Complete streets are roadways designed to include room for drivers, transit riders, pedestrians, and cyclists.
Like this area at First and Clark.
Or right here at Highview and Valley Verde.
Or this rapid flashing beacon right here on Alexander Road and Arcata Way.
Or right here at Georgia Avenue and Adams Boulevard.
Or right here at Pioneer Boulevard and Grapevine Road.
Or here at Fort Apache and Elkhorn.
Complete streets are designed to be safe for all users, regardless of how you choose to travel. Do you want to see more complete streets in your neighborhood? If so, you can contribute $2 to the Complete Streets program when you renew your vehicle registration online at dmvnv.com or at any of the convenient DMV kiosks located around town. Just in the past year, the DMV collected $130,000 that will be used to install new bike lanes, school zone flashers, and pedestrian signals. This means a better roadway for cyclists and for children walking to school. This means a better road.
For you.
For you.
For you.
For you.
For you. For you.
For more information on Complete Streets, visit our
Hey, how you doing? Hey, girl, Nicole, good luck on the play tonight. You're welcome. What's up, guys? Now you're gonna make sure that you return those on Monday, right? Thank you. Oh, nice.
We'll talk to you for a second. Go ahead, get your water. Come on, let me get your water. Just get out the way.
you guys want to do?
I don't know. What do you want to do?
I don't know. What do you want to do?
1, 2, ready, go. Gonna pull the stops, gonna make it go. Drop down, gagged and bound, just sitting down and getting nowhere. You're living on a wing and a prayer. Gonna put them things together. You know it's now or never. The building will be
What do you guys want to do now?
Okay, now you ready? Now, just like I showed you.
Yeah.
Now push in the clutch and gently shift it in the first gear.
I remember, okay.
Okay, that was good. Oh, honey, look this way. Look this way. You're doing, honey, hit the gas a little bit more. Hit the gas. Oh, okay. No, honey, put your hands on the wheel. Hey, honey, it's okay. You're doing great. You're driving. And once you just pull over right here, that's perfect. Brake.
Thank you, Dad.
Look at this guy. What are you gonna do, kid? Go home. It's hopeless. Yeah, dude, do something with your life. Leave. You're looking stupid, man. Give it up.
Dave, it's their boss. You're giving a shit this Saturday. You really need
Hey, Shane.
Welcome back. Our contestants reached the final round, where he's faced with 3 difficult choices. Behind curtain number 1, more alcohol than your body could ever survive. Behind curtain number 2, dangerous, mind-altering drugs. And behind curtain number 3, we have your family, your friends, and your self-respect. All right, Luke, what's it gonna be? Come on, Luke. Luke.
Luke. You want another beer?
Oh, hey, look, that's my sister. Hey, Nicole, isn't your dad supposed to be here? He's coming. He promised. I trust him.
Campaign ad tested extremely well. I can't tell you how much.
Sorry, I gotta go.
Showtime, guys. 1 minute.
Hi, I'm Mike Pacini, Community Affairs Director for Boulder Disposal. Citywide no-sort recycling is here. Boulder City now has expanded a citywide comprehensive no-sort recycling program. It is so simple to use and proven to increase recycling results virtually overnight. Welcome to the Boulder City Recycling Center, where thousands and thousands of tons of your recyclables are diverted from being buried in our landfill. You can now recycle at home, at work, and at school. The new recycling program is totally easy, so do your part, aim for zero waste. How easy is it, you ask? You throw all your recyclables into one bin and you're done. And it's that simple. Just put your cart at the curb before 6 a.m. every Wednesday to ensure pickup.
Recycling is now available for single-family and multifamily residences, including apartments, mobile home parks, and RV parks.
The new program includes businesses, schools, and parks too. So no matter where you are in Boulder City, you can do your part.
The industry term for no-sort recycling is single stream. In its simplest terms, what used to be multiple streams of recyclables needed to be separated by the homeowner in advance of pickup. The no-sort method combines all the streams, paper, plastic, and glass, into one. All participants need to do is throw all recyclables into one container. And due to technological advances in recovering the materials, nearly all of the waste is effectively recycled. Be sure to review the No-Sort Recycling Guide brochure that came with your container to ensure proper material disposal. Recyclable guidelines are also indicated on the container lid.
Boulder City, with your continued commitment to recycling and our new BC Waste-Free No-Sort Recycling program, we are confident we can more than double the amount of recyclables kept out of our landfill. All homeowners can participate in the citywide BC Waste-Free Curbside Recycling program. Each homeowner will be provided with a green 65-gallon wheeled recycling bin.
All recycling will be collected on Wednesday every week. Place all recyclable materials in the green bin and wheel it to the curb. Remember, the green bin should have no food, yard waste, clothing, styrofoam, wax-coated cartons, or cups. It's very important to keep the green bin for our recyclables only. Once your green bins have been emptied, the recyclables are trucked to the Boulder City Recycling Center and unloaded.
It's here at the Boulder City Recycling Center where your recyclables are loaded into containers and trucked to the main recycling center in North Las Vegas. So no matter where you are in Boulder City, you can do your part. Aim for zero waste. For those residences requiring additional recycling bins, please email us at contact@bcwastefree.com or visit us online at bcwastefree.com. Improved recycling is vital to the future of our city and our planet. Aim for zero waste. I'm Mike Passini, Community Affairs Director for Boulder Disposal, and together we'll make Boulder City cleaner and greener.
A plan of attack, like something that maybe the military would use?
It's a plan that my daughter uses to plan for her basketball games.
Strategic plan is how I get my wife and kids in an area that they don't want to be.
It's a document that's strategically done.
A strategic plan would be the implementation of a vision.
A strategic plan is a guiding, fluid document that helps the city plan for its future. The goals and objectives have been identified through community input.
we go? Go. Go. Haggard song.
All right.
Mama's hungry eyes. D.
Now,
I'm ready. A canvas covered cabin in a traveling labor town stands out in your memory miles around. 'Cause my daddy raised a family there with two hard-working hands and tried to feed my mom hungry eyes. He dreamed of something better as my mama's faith was strong, and as kids were just too young to realize that another class of people was somewhere just below. No reason for my one hungry eye. Mama never had the luxury she wanted, and it wasn't 'cause my daddy didn't try. She only wanted things she really needed. One more reason for my mama hungry eyes. I remember Daddy praying for a better way of life, but I don't recall a change on any side. Just a little loss of courage as their age began to show, and the sadness of my mom hungry eyes. Mama never had the luxury she wanted, and it wasn't 'cause my daddy didn't try. She only wanted things she really needed. One more reason for my mama hungry eyes. And he called my mama hungry eyes.
okay. I didn't want to get it too loud. Okay, Yellow Rose in Texas.
What tea you got there, boy?
In Chief of Georgia. Good golly, Miss Molly. There's a yellow rose in Texas, going there to see. Nobody else could love her, not half as much as me. She cried for when I left her, it nearly broke my heart. And if I ever find her, we never more will part. She's the sweetest little flower this cowboy ever knew. Her eyes are bright as diamonds, they sparkle like they do. You can talk about your winsome face, king of Rosalie, but the yellow rose in Texas beats the bell of Tennessee. You want to take a little cowboy? Where the real branches blowing and starry skies are bright, she walks along the river in the quiet
Okay, this is cabin of death. Now, in G. Yeah, G, I'm sorry. Now, Mom and Dad, they died up in our cabin. Little sisters and they died too. We'll bury her out behind the cabin. This is a spot beside her for me and you. Oh, everybody's dying in our cabin. We all thought that it was just a fluke. Turns out it was something really different. Now it's even killing me and you. Well, first we called upon the family doctor to see if he could save little Sister Sue. He said he'd never seen anything quite like it. Look out back, he's buried out there too. Oh, everybody's dying in our cabin. We all thought that it was just a fluke. Turns out it was something really different. And now it's even killing me and you. If you should ever go out to our cabin, up along the pine trees in the hills, you'll find a rusty shovel by the graveyard. Dig a hole if you start feeling ill. Oh, everybody's dying in our cabin. We all thought that it was just a fluke. Turns out it was something really different. And now it's even killing me and you.
I guess party's over.
So that's what I did.
Brian began. How about Fraulein? That's a pretty good one. In A. Let's see, let's wait for
Oh, I'm always ready.
All right. Chuck, you ready over there?
Yeah, we always ready.
Fraulein in A.
Okay. Wait, we can catch up.
Far across the deep blue water lives an old German daughter by the bank of the old river Rhine, where I loved her and her, but I've been fortunate. I miss my dream. He